decades, Zimbabweans have been told by elements within the ruling party and the military that a vote for change means a return to war. Today, what we hear from some that have been expelled from ZANU-PF is that the only hope for stability in the country is if they are in power, and that it's either them or else. Friends and countrymen, it's important that we reject the idea that the firing of anyone from ZANU-PF poses an existential threat to our nation, or that the pain of those fired warrants changing our focus from seeking our complete freedom to helping them settle their political scores. We cannot reward their selfish expectation that their troubles should be equated to the greatest injustices perpetrated against the Zimbabwean people. The loss of their positions of privilege is not the same as the trauma suffered by the victims of violence in Matabeleland. Let's not forget that we have real problems in this country. 90% unemployment and over 70% of Zimbabweans still living in poverty almost 4 decades after independence. We have needless deaths in hospitals because of the collapse of our healthcare system, or because citizens cannot access money in their bank accounts to pay for urgently needed medical care. Zimbabweans in the diaspora and those with aliens stamped on their identity documents are still denied the vote, even though they were born and raised in Zimbabwe. We are in this situation today because we have been intimidated in the past by the military and ZANU-PF to vote our fears rather than our hopes. We have all heard the unconstitutional declarations by senior military personnel that the military would not salute anyone who did not have Liberation War credentials. Now, yesterday, the commander of the Defense Forces talked about the enemies of the revolution that had penetrated ZANU-PF to reverse the gains of the struggle by targeting people with Liberation War credentials for purging. So we are supposed to fear that our country will be taken away from us as a result. Again, lest we forget, the people who have targeted others in ZANU-PF with Liberation War credentials include the chairman of the War Veterans Association, Chris Mutsvangwa, who, along with the president's wife and Jonathan Moyo, viciously attacked Joyce Mujuru and hounded her out of ZANU-PF and the government. In the aftermath of her firing, VP Mnangagwa gleefully made the Takazipigwa speech, crediting Mrs. Mugabe for opening everyone's eyes to the evil machinations of his former comrade, who he now contemptuously referred to as Runaida. So, according to General Chiwenga's logic, therefore, both Mnangagwa and Mutsvangwa should be numbered among the enemies of the revolution, who should not be found anywhere near state power. It's tragic that even representatives from foreign countries with long democratic traditions have echoed the suggestions that Zimbabweans deserve meaningless stability more than an end to their suffering, and that our only hope is to vote for the ZANU-PF faction that can offer that stability. They seem to have even persuaded some who have been champions of our freedom that the fight for change needs to be postponed and only resumed after the faction that lost the last round in the ZANU-PF fights gets its revenge and is in the driving seat. There is no faction in ZANU-PF better than the other, and we have a historic duty to ourselves and to future generations to reject their rank hypocrisy, threats, and blackmail, and vote our hopes, not our fears. Instead of being distracted by the old, tired, and self-serving talk about protecting the revolution that simply disgraces the sacrifices of true freedom fighters like General Tongogara and thousands of others who left it all on the field of battle, we must respond to the fierce urgency of this moment and register to vote and vote in unprecedented numbers for inspired, competent, and selfless leaders who will build a nation whose greatness will be measured not just by the standards of Africa, but of the world. The leaders who will unleash the incredible potential of all Zimbabweans to build a great nation will not be those who are preoccupied with proving their anti-imperialism credentials or disenfranchising any Zimbabwean citizens because they lack liberation war credentials. It will instead be those who lead by the conviction that no Zimbabwean has a higher claim to citizenship than another on account of race, age, tribe, gender, or liberation war credentials, and that the full participation of every citizen in deciding the future of our country and rebuilding it is urgently needed. Let's not be fooled. We need a new start. May God help us. Zimbabwe, ilizwe letu, ilifa letu. Zimbabwe, nyika yedu, naka yedu. Zimbabwe, our country, our heritage.
Chichi.